Hi, Troy Love.
Hello.
So we were talking briefly before I hit the record about like how how these patterns of attachment wounds and even the shame spirals show up regularly. It was interesting because I was talking to somebody and it was so blatant and how stuck they were, like they like I would say paralyzed, honestly, in the fear and I thought how sad because like then you're stuck and you're never going to move forward, but you're in a horrible place. So these patterns that we create, the voices that we
Right.
use, while we perceive that they are helpful, they just, really steal our lives from us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I was talking to someone just this morning and she said she was grateful that I was calling her shadows out because she didn't see them. And then as soon as I
Mm.
pointed them out, she's like, oh, yeah, there's that one. I said, okay, so it's out for a reason. Let's see if we can figure out why it's there and have compassion. So,
So we have a question. I was asked, how do I regain hope? I said, I cannot tell you how to do that, but I can say that in my experience, I've witnessed changes in people and situations that give me hope and a desire to keep being present and showing up for life. I might not understand why things unfold the way they do, and they might not even seem fair, but I have faith that in the long run, the greater good will prevail, even if I'm not there to see it. That gives me hope.
it's a question that I'm asked a lot as a therapist. How do you keep doing this job? How do you hear such hard things all the time? And it's the hope that, and I watch it, people change, people's situations improve, even despite the hardest of hard things that they go through, the sun comes up the next day. And that's what gives me hope to keep doing what I do. So thank you for sharing that.
And I always say, because I've heard it's not fair, a lot in my recovery journey. I'm pretty sure I said it early on. And then I had the realization that if it was fair, honestly, I'd be dead, So like if I got what I deserved, like I'd be dead, So like life is life, and so there's no, oh, and now you're in recovery and so everything's going to be perfect for you. No,
I
you're going to
wish.
have the tools and
I
support to be able
wish.
to do life, in a different way, but it doesn't change that. I mean, you can quit causing chaos and making your life worse. That is a change, but yeah, I mean, the hope, like you said too, I am always sad. I had an email this morning from somebody, and 2 years ago, he was in a very different place, but he wasn't ready for help. And now it's horrible. His health, he's homeless. I mean, like all of these things, and things have continued to deteriorate. And I go, gosh, 2 years ago, if you'd been willing to get help, it could be different. So not everybody is willing, but for those that are willing, I see, this is life changing, this work. And I hear it from not just those that are struggling with the problematic behaviors, but partners too. Now, their hope journey, is delayed because it obviously is one of those things where this person has to regain trust. Somebody I was talking to the other day, and they were like, I know I should trust him. I'm like, no, you shouldn't. Not yet. He has to earn that, and you can't trust naively or or
Right. Right.
yeah. So, but you can be on a path, that is, that is different and hopeful,
Absolutely.
regardless of life circumstances. So,
Absolutely. Well, if any of you have questions, we would love to answer them. So the way you do that is putting them in the Q&A. Don't put them in the chat because we don't monitor that as much. I mean, we're looking at it, but it's easier for us to manage the questions and answers in the Q&A button down below. So if you want to do that, it's when you talk about trust, one of the tools that I use comes from a book called The Speed of Trust, which is actually a business
Oh,
book written by Stephen M.R. Covey, who is the son of Stephen.
oh, interesting.
And um, he has this quadrant similar to his father about trust. And so on the y-axis is our propensity to trust. And so the higher you go on the y-axis, the more that I'm willing to trust. And at the bottom is like, I'm not willing to extend trust at all. And then along the x-axis is how much I analyze things. So we have on the far end, way at the end, is like I analyze everything to death. And then at the far left, it's I don't analyze anything at all. And so there's a lot of people who don't have a propensity to trust, and they don't really analyze anything. And so for those people, they don't have any trust, so they have no trust. But there's also the people who are willing to give trust pretty easily, but they don't analyze it, and that's blind trust. And so, well, I'm just gonna go along with what you say until they get burned, and then they can move down to the no trust column. But what we really want them to be able to be is willing to extend trust, so high on the y-axis, but also high on the x-axis, where we call that smart trust. So I'm willing to extend trust, but I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to try to seek for evidence to support this decision. I'm not just going to blindly do that. And I talk a lot about that with people in recovery and the partners thereof. So, I love that you want to extend trust, and you've been burned enough that you don't do that as easily. So now look for the evidence, the facts to actually support your ability to extend trust, not just what they say.
Well, let's take it a step farther, because so now I'm a betrayed partner and I'm looking to navigate that a little bit better. But my addict is going, I feel like you're interrogating me all the time, so how do you navigate this person who just blindly trusted is now asking questions, but meeting with resistance? So to me, it would feel like the pattern is to go, well, I better not ask questions. So how do you navigate so both parties can move forward on that?
Well, I think that's the dialogue. So I want to be able to trust you, and I've been burned. And so I need more evidence to support my ability to trust what you're saying. And so we oftentimes want you to just believe me. Well, I did before,
Yeah.
and that didn't work out that well. So show me that you're doing things, like show me that you're going to meetings, that you're checking in with your therapist, that you're checking in with me, that you follow through on the things that you say you're going to do, even the little things. Like, don't lie. Don't give me white lies. Tell me the truth. Those are the kind of things that can make me start to say, well, I think I can start to believe you. I'm going to start putting some marbles in the jar. We used that analogy before. You get a marble in the jar. It's pretty, there's not very many marbles of trust in the jar right now, but by you doing that, I am able to put another marble in the jar. And over time, it takes time to rebuild trust. Then I'm able to trust you again. Not 100%. I don't think it will ever be 100%, but 99%, 98%, still pretty good.
Well, and I think betrayed partners start to trust their gut. Like they're
Right.
more able to go. I have so many partners that go, he says he's in recovery, or like I had one that was like the miracle cure, because like 2.5 years ago, like poof, he flipped a switch and he's never had a slip. He's never had a relapse, and I was like, wow, that it sends up a huge red flag for me. So I said, I'm sorry, but I don't trust that. And I would invite you not to trust that. It's really, like you're saying, it's the accountability in actions, like, are you showing me that you are trustworthy? But I do think, yes, you can rebuild trust, not, with the blind trust, but also that partners go, wait, something feels off, and I can trust myself, because I've been gaslit. I've been told, forever that, oh, I'm doing, so that helps, create that space. Okay. As a betrayed partner, how do I respond to my partner that is asking for his needs with defensiveness and criticism? And these needs are directly part of my boundaries for triggers. Oh, that's interesting.
Mhm. Um, so I don't know your situation. I'll tell a story. When I very first moved to Yuma, I was not familiar with any of the anywhere, and there were two bowling alleys. One that was nearby my work, and one that was somewhere else. And I worked for a, um, uh, I worked for a mental health institute. I worked with kids. I was doing therapy with kids, and it was part of their summer program or something like that. And so this group of kids were going to meet at the bowling alley, and I was supposed to meet them there. And so I I went to the wrong one. It was closed. It was long before cell phone. This feels like old. So I didn't have cell phone.
Back in the olden days when there weren't
Old,
cell
yeah.
phones. Yeah.
And I didn't have gray hair. And so I finally get to the one, and I was mad. And I recognize now that it was my rejection wound and my abandonment wound that was getting triggered. Like I was afraid that I was rejecting them by not coming. And so I talked to my coworker, and I was mad, and I like chewed her out, and she's like, you can try that again. And I'm like, wait, what? And she's like, you can try that again. Don't talk to me like that. And I was, obviously I still remember it because it was 20 years ago, and I'm still telling the story. She didn't do it meanly. She didn't do it criticizing, but she had enough of her own sense of worth to say, try that again. And then I'm like, oh, I'm so sorry. Like I think I'm really stressed out, and I own my stuff. So one of the ways that you may want to do that is when your partner is asking for his needs in defensiveness and criticism, to say, you could try that again. Try that a different way. And part of that is you knowing that you're enough, which we always struggle with, I think, but knowing that you are enough. And if he says that, you say, if it's defensive, you can try that again. Or when you're not in the conflict, saying, when you come to me like you're doing right now, when you come to me with defensiveness and criticism, I'm going to tell you that there's a 100% chance that your needs are not going to get met. The other part is that when you are doing that, it doesn't really give me space to be able to be me. I'm going to go right into defensiveness myself. And I'm hearing that part of this is you have some boundaries around some things. And so part of that is being able to say, these are my boundaries that I've already clarified, that I'm not okay
Your
with.
sound just changed.
Oh, really?
Yeah, now that's better. So
Okay.
yeah, but you sounded distant.
Okay. But these are my boundaries, and I want to be able to handle those in a way that doesn't get us into more conflict. So having that dialogue, but when it's happening, don't buy into it. You can just say, that's not happening. Try that again.
Yeah, well, and I think I agree that don't try to talk about this when it's happening, and it's just, it never, if things escalate and everybody's upset and it doesn't go well. And, so having that conversation of, the next time you do this, because it will happen again, this is what I'm going to do. So it's not, I'm just looking for a different way of navigating this, because ultimately you guys want to be on a path together that's different and better. So you, like Troy said, you doing something different, can help start that. Okay. What is the in-between time supposed to look like? In between, meaning that we are in our own therapy. He has a CSAT and she has an APSAT therapist. He has started going to a support group once a week. So we're hopefully headed in a better place, but right now still stuck. No transparency, honesty, forthcomingness, lots of resentment and silent treatments, and anger and distance. What is the time supposed to be? Oh, this is a whopper of a question.
It is, right? I don't know if they're supposed to. For a lot of people, it looks exactly like this, which is really painful. Um, so I love that he is going to his CSAT. I love that you are getting your own therapist, and he started to go to his own support group. So it can take a person who's working on recovery, actively doing things like therapists and going to groups, it can take them a year to 2 years for their brain to really have rewired itself to learn new tools. So at the beginning of this thing, a lot of us who are struggling in recovery or struggling with addiction don't have any other tools. We don't have any other tools. And so we act like little kids a lot of the time. And all of a sudden we've taken our numbing mechanism away. And this is not an excuse. This is just the thing. And so now we act really mean, and we throw fits and stuff like that. And part of that is because we haven't learned how to deal with emotions, how to talk about things. And so that takes time. And that being said, having some humility in this, and I don't mean you, I mean your husband, having some humility in this and saying, oh, I'm trying to get it, and I know that this is hard, and I want to work on some stuff, helps. But the resentment, the silent treatments, the anger, the distance, what that tells me is that that the attachment wounds are being hit, and they immediately go into defensive mode, trying to protect themselves for a lot of fear. There's a tremendous amount of fear going on, and there's a tremendous amount of shame going on. And so the shame and the fear is what's driving those behaviors. And there's not a whole lot you can say to make the person change their shame. There's not a whole lot you can say. The fear is, I'm guessing, I'm totally guessing. The fear is that your husband has the idea that you're eventually just going to leave, that you're going to leave, and that you're going to not tolerate this anymore. And so ironically, they behave in exactly the way that would make it so. But they don't see it like that. They see it as almost their own defensiveness, and their shadows come out to kind of defend the way that they're behaving. But underneath all of it is fear. And that's the irony. Like, if you continue behaving like a jerk, I'm probably going to leave. If you had some humility and vulnerability and said, I'm really struggling right now, and this is hard, I could have space for that, because yeah, it is hard. So again, that's a long answer, but there's no supposed to be. It's going to be rocky. And the more that you can wrap yourself around with support, we have We Tonglen for women who are betrayed partners. That's just for women. And also Tammy's been putting some other links in the chat for you to help you get some support. And my hope is that he will talk about this with his CSAT. He'll talk about this in his support group and start to learn some tools to change his reactions.
So, and I put those resources in there, but what I hear is he's seeing his CSAT once a week, and he's going to a group once a week. This is a 24/7 issue. Like, this is like, and these are old stuff. This is, usually before age 10. So I don't know how old he is, kind of irrelevant, but it's probably decades, because, he's probably, over 30. So, so that's not enough to really create the space for change. So the more he leans into recovery, and I gave a bunch of resources. We've got the drop-in groups. There's numerous. Troy does one on Fridays with the guys, but there's a number of them, all free, on our website. The webinars here, like this is open for everybody. The work group, the Sex Addiction 101 or Porn Addiction 101, whichever is the appropriate choice. But many therapists recommend those in conjunction with the work that they are doing with them, because it's solid psychoeducation that you don't get in therapy. And so that would be a really good support. But it's like, what is he doing daily, and not just reading? I love books, and listening to podcasts is helpful, but him connecting with others. And like, we don't do this in isolation. That's what addiction is. We need other people in recovery. So him leaning into, the 12-step community, and I put the link for that. There's SA, SAA, SLA, SPAA, PA, PAA, etc. So there's lots of 12 steps, whatever's the right fit for him. And he can check, but his doing on a daily basis, is how things change. But this is a long process. Now, the flip side of it is for you, what are your healthy boundaries? And we talk often about that, the healthy boundaries: physical, emotional, financial, and spiritual. Sometimes people use a little different language for those, but it's your healthy boundaries are for you. You having your support. I put Wee Tonglen in there, but again, there's drop-in groups, webinars. Debbie McCrae's Friday afternoon. She did a great one on accountability. She's done a great one on healthy boundaries and fear, and so there's a lot of support resources, on our site. But the more you each lean into the support that you have, the faster this goes. But there's no magic, at this time, poof, the switch is flipped and we're now living in nirvana, it's recovery. Whoa, no, this is, you have more tools for life. But your ability to trust him is going to be dependent on his actions that you see. But this feels like, just from what you've shared, that you're very early in the process. So again, please lean into the resources. There's a Betrayed Partner work group for you starting June 14th. Angela Spearman teaches that. They're great groups, all pro-dependent aligned, no codependent, pathologizing loved ones. So check out the links that are in the chat. But I'm glad you're here. And these are recorded. There's a zillion. I'm not kidding. Well, I'm kidding a little bit. But there's hundreds, maybe even 1,000 YouTube videos of all of the recordings that we've done, because we do multiple every week. So check those out on our website too. Okay. I'm struggling to trust and forgive my husband for all the betrayals over the years. How is it possible to get past the fact that your husband had sex with over 300 women over 14 years of marriage?
So I want to make sure some definitions are clear. A lot of times when people hear the word forgive, what they mean is pardon. So you think about somebody who, like a governor or a president, pardons them, and they're able to get out of jail early. And so people think that that's what forgiveness means, and that's not what forgiveness means. It does not pardon them for the behavior that they did. That's not what forgiveness is. Forgiveness really is letting go of all of the resentment and anger that I'm holding on to because of somebody else's behavior. And I think that's really important, that you don't have to pardon somebody and you can still let go of the anger and resentment. In other words, and you put in there, like, I'm struggling to trust and forgive. Well, I don't know if you're ever going to trust your husband again, ever, even if he does all the things. I don't know if you will ever be able to trust that. And that's what I mean. Like, when we talk about pardoning, people often say, well, forgive and forget. Well, no, that's what they're saying is pardon and forget. No, I can let go of the resentment. I don't have to internalize that. I can understand that his behavior is about his own stuff, and that does not define me as a human. I'm worthy of love and belonging, and I'm worthy of being treated with dignity and respect, and I'm worthy of having a partner who treats me that way. And that is different than just pardoning. So the way to forgive somebody is really figuring out, well, what is the judgment that I'm carrying around with this person? And this is a very unique way of explaining this. So this may sound foreign to you, especially maybe the way that other therapists work with it, but what is the judgments and the accusations that I am carrying around with me that I use to kind of fan my own anger and bitterness? And is there a way to be able to let go of that and be able to see that I'm worthy of love and belonging, and to see that he is worthy of love and belonging, and be able to not carry that resentment anymore about it? But that does not mean that I'm not going to have boundaries in place. It does not mean that I'm not going to do things to make sure that I'm safe. Like, that is different than forgiveness. So part of that is really connecting with your truth that you're enough, and that's hard to do. When I hear that he's had sex with over 300 people, other 300 women in 14 years, that's a lot of betrayal. And there's probably so many stories that your shadows come up and say things to you like, you're not enough, and if you only did this, or if you only did that, or all those kind of things, which those shadows are lying. I am enough. And part of that is being able to sit in that truth and say, how do I let go of the anger and resentment and let him own his own behaviors? He gets to own those, and I get to make choices that are in my best interest. The process is not simple. I mean, it's simple, but it's more than I can like tell in a 10-minute thing, but it is possible to do that. But please understand, you still can have boundaries, and you can let go of the anger and resentment and still have a lot of ability to say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not
I
going.
so appreciate that you unpack the two of them. It's like not trust and forgive. It's trust is earned. And you didn't share if he is working on being on a recovery journey. That is a very broken person. And I'm so sorry for you. And I'm also sorry for him. So, the part of the forgiveness, so, and I've shared this before, but early in my recovery, someone told me, that I was letting someone live rent free in my head. That made me very angry. But it's like Troy said, it's hurting me, regardless of what's happening with someone else. So it was really, because I valued me, I needed to let go of the resentment that I was doing. So, and forgiveness isn't like, oh, again, flip the switch. Oh, now I've forgiven them. Like, there can be, moments where stuff comes back up and, needs to be processed again. So I think it can be layers, but forgiveness is, if you are able to look at him as a very, very broken person, and what he's done is, is horrible and hurtful and all of those things. I hope you are taking care of you. I'm so glad you're here. I hope you have good support. I hope you've had an FTD test. I hope you're taking care of your physical health, financial. If he's had sex with, there's usually financial consequences. So I hope you've got good structure in place for your healthy boundaries, for your safety. But it's really, what do you need to do to take care of you? Regardless of of what he has done, and you know what, if you're still married to him, you still know that there's this piece of him that you still love. It's very complicated. It's not, oh, he's a monster and all of these things, and so it's just complicated. But I'm so glad you're here. Please join. Troy has this week the attachment, right? No, wait, this week you have the betrayed partner group, right? Yes, I thought so.
Mhm.
And so tomorrow, he has the drop-in group for betrayed partners. Friday, he has the one for guys, for the addicts. So they're on our website. You'll find that information. But betrayal, the betrayal wounds, neglect. I don't even know how many, got poked with all of this. But getting support for you would be key. So, okay, next question, Troy. 26 months into our good recovery of pornography addiction, my essay of 43 years, many discoveries over the last 30 years. He just admitted to the fantasy piece in his behavior, that he was having sex with women on the screen. Not news to me. This is difficult for me. It has made me feel, why did this take so long for him to realize? What is it about SA belief system? He is in SAA on his 10th step. I'm having the trauma dreams again with his new truth.
I don't Okay, so there's this really powerful defense behavior that a lot of people use, not just addicts, called denial. um, we refuse, even though we have the evidence staring us in the face, to accept that that is true, because everything that I do is attached to attachment wounds. Because if I admitted that, then you'll probably leave. You'll probably abandon me. You'll probably neglect me. You'll probably reject me. You'll probably abuse me. I'll lose you, like all of that. And so the denial, as crazy it is for people on the outside to be able to see right through it, the person who's dealing with the denial, they can't see it. It's such a powerful protection mechanism that as he started to do recovery, and some of those defensives have started to chip away. Like a year ago, if you had asked him, no, I didn't do that, no, and all of a sudden he's been doing his work, I'm guessing, like he's on the 10th step, so he's doing his work, he's starting to look inside himself. um Being able to look at that and say, wow, like uh maybe that's true. And so what you said is, it wasn't news to me. I've known this the whole time. Why in the heck couldn't you just say it? And part of that is because of his own fear. It's not an excuse. I mean, it's really hard to talk about this stuff and make it sound like I'm excusing behavior. I'm not. It's still hurtful. It's still profoundly damaging. What I'm hearing, though, is his brain is wiring enough that he's finally able to say, hey, this is actually happening. That's the challenge, is that when things like this start to happen, it's like it's another stab in the partner, right? So now I have more recovery to do now. Like, why couldn't you just said that at the beginning? When we do a full disclosure process, we let people know, like, we've done our best to include everything that we can possibly think of in this full disclosure, but there is a possibility that as my brain begins to heal more, as things happen, I'm going to remember something that I didn't say here. And so I am committing that when that comes to my awareness, I'm going to share that with you within 24 hours. That's one of the principles that we try to do. So the belief system that your spouse probably has is tied to his attachment wounds, that I'm not enough, there's something wrong with me, and if you find out, you're going to leave me. And that's what was driving that behavior. What I want you to be able to know is that you're enough, and there isn't comparison. We get trapped into the comparison game as betrayed partners too, but there isn't comparison. You are enough, and you matter, and that you are worthy of love and belonging. And the fantasy was based in fantasy, not reality. And it was based on his own sense of inadequacy. It was never about you not being enough. It was always about him not being enough. And so you are enough, no matter what.
And with the dreams, I would like, I don't know if you've worked with a qualified professional, but yeah, some EMDR perhaps on that may be helpful, or somatic experience. There may be some trauma technique that could help you process through this. I mean, yeah, the dreams, I've been through that, and I had 10 months of it, and I was like, okay, I'm getting better, because they went, they finally go away. But I also had help with, a qualified professional, and did some EMDR. It was helpful for me, but there's lots of different, trauma work, but his realizations, who knows, if you're aware of more that he's going to have to, discover yet. But for you, get some help to support you through that. So, okay, next question. betrayed partner, 10 months in, we are doing our formal disclosure next week. I see him preparing for it, but I'm feeling really disconnected now. I feel like we're both not showing up for each other. I think he's being distant. He says he doesn't feel like he's distant. I think we both may be feeling anxious about the disclosure and just acting and feeling different. How do I handle this week without totally disconnecting myself? Or is it better to disconnect going into disclosure?
Uh, I just want to honor that both of you probably are disconnecting. This is a big deal and it's scary, right? It can be a very painful experience and a very healing experience. So it would make sense that both of you are feeling anxious. He is probably not as aware of his feelings as you are. That's part of not only addicts, but also that I'm assuming you're a woman and he's a man, and men are not really in touch with their feelings anyway. We learn how to do that. So part of that, I think, is saying, so he's saying he doesn't feel like he's being distant. Well, it doesn't matter whether he is or not isn't feeling like it, you're feeling it. And so you can say, well, you feel really far away. What would really help me right now is, and tell him what would help. But also being able to say, I am, like what you did just here, I'm really anxious. I'm really worried about the disclosure. I'm really worried about what I'm going to hear. I'm really worried that there's going to be something in there that's going to really freak me out. And what I really need is, and that's the part that you follow up with, to share your feelings and then to share what you need. Oftentimes we will either just shut it down. We, as the husband, will just, well, don't worry about that. It's not a big deal. Or we will try to fix it. And most of that is because I'm like, I don't know what to do. I'm scared too. So you being able to say, this is what would help, or can you just like be with me, just hold my hand, because I'm really feeling far away from you, and kind of twisting the words a little bit, looking at it from a different, like, you're far away, but I'm far away, and this is what I need, will probably help. And to acknowledge it. Hey, we're both scared. This is really scary, and absolutely so. Also, who else do you have in your support system? Because what we want to make sure you have is that you have the support system and he has a support system, so that after the full disclosure, there's still, you're not just free falling, that there's some support for you. So I'm hoping that you also have some other people in your life who are there for you. If you connect with any of the women from some of the support system, they've been through this, so they could probably normalize some of the feelings that you're feeling, and let you know that this is normal too, so that you're not being completely alone as both of you are scared to death walking into this.
I'm really pleased to hear that you guys are making progress with that. I agree with what Troy said. Lean into your qualified professional. You should have a whole plan of this is how this is going to go. The Wee Tonglen, all of our drop-in groups, all of your support. This is really lean into your each of your support. The other thing I'm going to throw a cautionary tale out there, because I've had people who got anxious, and so then they decided to, well, let's just do it here now.
Yeah, don't do that, please.
Don't do that. No, it was an unmitigated disaster. So like you're at the home stretch. So, and this is just an event. So don't, like, this isn't going to magically fix everything, and it sets a foundation on which to build. So that's the point of this, and well done. There was a little study, and it was like 92% of people found them helpful if both parties had the support and did move through this. So you're almost there. Lean into your betrayed partner support group. They're there for you. They've been through it. A lot of them have been through it already. They can help you hold that space. So, but yeah, I can see him being head down, going, I need to keep working on that. I need to get good that he's doing the work, for that too. So I wish you well on that, and please know, that sets a foundation. But there's a lot. This is a journey. It's not like, oh, now we've done disclosure, so everything's all better. So, okay, next question: is it normal? I always love those questions. Is it normal or healthy for a betrayed partner to ask the other wrongdoer to not go to public places without them, or e.g. a coffee shop, because there might be a provocative person there? Is it the job of the betrayed partner to supervise the addict and generally look over his recovery processes closely?
Is it normal? Yes, lots of couples do that. Is it healthy? I don't know. It is not the partner's job to be the supervisor or the parent, for lack of a better word, of the person in recovery. If you get into that, that's going to be painful for both of you. So no, it's not your job. Your job, if you're the betrayed partner, is to have boundaries, and it's your job as the person struggling in their recovery to be honest, tell the truth, and do recovery. That's their job. So I see this situation happen a lot, and it makes me sad for both parties, because it's almost like living in a prison. I can't tell you how many addicts I work with who they go to the store and they have to look at the ground all the time, and I'm like, what kind of life is that to live, that you're afraid to look up, because you might see somebody and that you might fantasize them about them, or your partner's going to see you looking at somebody, and so I get that might be a stage of recovery, but I'm hoping that is not a permanent thing, because we live in a beautiful world with beautiful humans and beautiful sunsets and beautiful trees and all those things, and to have to look down for the rest of your life makes me sad. Do I understand that you're like staring at somebody and maybe undressing them with your eyes, and that could be really triggering to your partner who's like watching you do that, and then they call you out and then you say, well, no, that wasn't what's going on. That's also problematic, because your partner just watched you do it for 5 minutes and then you're lying about it. So that's the challenge. And so part of that is figuring out, how do we navigate through this and what do we do? I don't want to be responsible for your recovery if I'm the betrayed partner. And so if I'm really worried that if you go to a coffee shop or you go to the grocery store, you're going to be checking out people the whole time that you're there. And so I go because I want to make sure that you're not doing that, because I'm afraid of what that means for me. And being able to talk about that, hopefully you have a couples counselor, or you guys have some support for being able to work with that. But at the bottom line, when we look at the proactive pro-dependence model, we want you to know that it's not maladaptive or bad that a partner wants their partner to get better and wants them to succeed in recovery. That's not bad. What is not helpful is to be the parent, because that sets both of you up for a lot of resentment, animosity, and that's not going to be helpful.
Yeah, and you cannot make the world safe enough. There's no way. There's elder erotica. There's like something's going to be triggering, or whatever. If he has the tools to use to do this, then there's the 3-second rule. There's tools. We learn to do the world differently. I had, like you were talking about, I had someone a while back that was talking about, she had contained everything. He was working from home. She was with him all the time. And I was like, oh my gosh, to me, this is the pressure cooker at some point, because he didn't have tools to use to do life differently. So this was just a matter of time. And as soon as he got, fed up, or, got let loose, all heck was going to break out. So it really is, what do you need for your healthy boundaries? And I hate for partners that all of their attention and focus is on the addict. Like, it's stealing your life from you if you are so worried about keeping that person safe because then you're going to be safe. No, what do you need for your safety, regardless of what that person is doing? And it's a shift. And I know it's hard. I'm not being trite. I'm not minimizing any of this, but the more you have support for you, the more you're going to go, he's going to do what he's going to do. I'm going to make sure that I'm okay. And if he's triggered, he has tools, or he can learn tools to do things differently. But, I'm going to take care of me.
I give you an example. I just had a client and his wife went to an event, and before they went, they had discussion about what could be expected. And there was agreements made from my client. And then within an hour of being there, he violated that, and it wasn't egregious, but he violated it. He knew it, and his wife just walked away, and did her own thing, and he knew it. And so then when he went back, he had the conversation and said, I failed to keep my word. She didn't have to confront him, because he knew it already. So part of that is having those kind of discussions, and then she walked away. That was her way of dealing with it. She didn't like freak out and all those things, but her boundary was, I'm not going to stand with you. And then he's looking around and realizing, oh, she's left. That's another sign that she did what she said she was going to do. I need to address my behavior.
And she did what she said she was going to do. She held her boundaries,
Yes.
like, yay, and she probably enjoyed the event despite himself. Could you please give some further insight to the connection between shame shadows and the addict's blocks in recovery as it relates to the surrender of control over the uncontrollable loss?
So the blocks in recovery are the shame shadows. So the 6 shame shadows, I'll pull them up so you can look at them really quick. Gotta go there though. There we go. The judge, the royal, the politician, the martyr, the impotent one, and the rebel, those are all voices in our head that prevent us from dealing with reality, really. They all have their own spin on reality, their own rules about the way that we should live our life. And so they all show up because of fear. Like underneath each one of those is a fear of being abandoned, neglected, rejected, betrayed, lost, all those kind of things. So part of that is recognizing that we do live in a world that is painful. Bad things happen. I just went to a funeral yesterday of one of my employees whose 3-month-old baby died. So bad things happen to really, really good people. And so the question that I'm always asking myself is, how do I find peace even though there's pain that's happening in this world? And there's a lot of pain. And the shadows show up to try and help me. They don't help, but they try to help me deal with my pain in really maladaptive ways. And so part of it is surrendering to life is painful. And there's beauty in the pain, and being able to really kind of hold both. And that's the surrender. I can make choices for how I'm going to deal with the situation, but I really can't make I can't make life not painful. That's part of the world, and surrendering that I'm still enough. I still have value, that I have people in my life who can be there for me. All of those things are what we surrender into, and letting go of trying to make it safe. Like Tammy was saying earlier, like that's part of what we do. I got to make it safe. I got to be hyper vigilant. I got to do this. I got to do that. I got to control. And no, in this moment, I just need to be me and breathe and feel.
I am so sorry for your
Thank you.
colleague's loss too. Okay, continue with what the time looks like. He's been seeing a therapist for a year now, but just started going to group last month. There have been a few slips and relapses over the whole year he's been in therapy, still lying and not coming forward about it. So there's hope, but then it's like he just is checking off boxes. Or do I have to be just realistic that things don't change so soon and this is what it looks like?
So that is the reality. There's a lot of girls, people who just check boxes. And at the beginning, that's what they do. Like, oh, my therapist told me I'm supposed to do this, so I'm going to do that. Oh, I'm supposed to do the first step, I'm going to do that. And they check boxes. The hope is that as they begin to check the boxes, it becomes internalized and their recovery is internalized. So, yes, like I said, it's going to take a year to 2 years of that. The fact that he's still lying and not coming forward about it is a red flag for me. Underneath that is a fear. He's afraid to be honest. And so there's some surrender for that of learning how to lean in. It's like what I was just saying, like, yeah, your partner's not going to be happy that you lied, but lean into that anyway and tell the truth anyway. It will be better. It will be better that you tell the truth. So that it is a process. And part of your recovery is keeping doing your work and recognizing that this doesn't happen overnight, but also having boundaries for yourself and saying, you know, I really can't tolerate the lying. That's just not going to work in the future. So that's not going to work. So I really hope you figure out how to tell the truth.
I added the cycle of addiction because, I often say this: you can't relapse if you're not in recovery. So to me, what I hear is, he's just kind of spinning through the cycles, which is, again, not atypical. I mean, that's what happens. What I don't hear is that he has enough help. So the more, we said it earlier, the more he leans into the recovery work, and I put a bunch of resources, the sex addiction 101 or porn addiction 101 would be the foundational place to start, but he'd have a really solid 3-circle plan, him getting a 12-step sponsor, him doing the drop-in groups. I mean, all of those things, that's where you're going to start to see change. So holding out hope, that's okay, but hold it with the reality of, right now his actions are on the light side, really, again, 24/7 issue, old, the maladaptive coping mechanism is the acting out. So stopping that and then addressing the underlying issues, but it's a process. And so real recovery, if he's doing the stuff right, that takes, like really we see a shift, closer to 2 years. So it's going to be a rocky road. And I say this, and I hate using timeframes because people go, or think, okay, it's been 2 years. We should, no, it's individualized, but, as a general rule, and the more he leans into, we have guys that come to our treatment program, and he would be a fit, but we have guys that come to our treatment program and they're way ahead of the process because it's so compressed. The work that they are doing is really digging into those things. So it is life changing, not just for the addicts who come, but for partners. They see that things, and they do have hope. They can have hope because they see, in that short time that he's been with us, that he's different. One partner, I love this. It was kind of tongue in cheek, but she said, I don't know what you did with the guy that I sent, but you can keep him. I like this guy. I'm keeping him, this version of him. And I was like, again, tongue in cheek, but wow, that's what we hope for is, that partners are seeing, this guy is different than the guy that I sent. So, okay, we have a couple more questions and we have 5 minutes. Okay, I'm in recovery as a pornography addicted SA with 12 plus years of sobriety, but my wife has experienced even deeper betrayal through my having been enmeshed with my mother. Oh, and I totally own that and grieve over the pain I've caused my wife. I expressed that to her. I have been working on that piece as well for many years. I have not been in touch with my mother except for a few controlled situations, but this is all very raw issue for my wife. I have read all of Ken Adams' stuff and gone through helping her heal workbooks. Can you please suggest other resources or tools I can employ to help her heal, or myself and my wife?
Yeah, well, okay. Shameless plug. So there's this book called Finding Peace that might be helpful for you. There's also a book that I was going to mention earlier for the one who had asked about forgiveness called no, I just lost it.
Easy for you to think of.
The Bonds That Make Us Free by
Oh.
C. Terry Warner, which is a lot about attachment. It's one of the foundational books that really helped me with the model that I use. I do have empathy intensive that's coming up in about a month for men who are wanting to learn how to have more empathy. So that's coming up. I'll give it to Tammy, and then she can do what she wants.
Please.
Um,
Yeah.
so that's uh, I love reading. I read. I'm always listening to something, podcast, book, all that kind of stuff. But sometimes I need some help applying it in real life, and so being able to have whether that's getting a group of guys together and doing your own book club, or like going to a support group, or going to something where you can start to practice, like, how do I do that? I know that Ken has an intensive for enmeshed men who have enmeshed mothers. So there's also that as a resource where you go and you start to apply some of the principles that you've learned. And to recognize that this is painful for both of you, and there's a lot of wounds that both of you are trying to heal through, so which I think you get. So those are some resources that come off the top of my head.
Yeah. It's a raw issue for your wife too. I love all of those suggestions too, but I'm also going, what support has she had? Has she had some help specifically for the trauma that she has experienced, with all of this? So if she needs help with certain things, email me, Tammy, TAMI at seekingintegrity.com, and let me know where you're located as well. I'll do my best to help you find a qualified. And, I have suggested, people get to pick, but there is a person, I'd go see her myself, that does a couple-day private intensive with betrayed partners. And I had one that said if he had not slept through the night in years, and the first night she was working with this person, she was able to sleep through the night. So just doing some body work and some of those things, can be helpful, because there's usually layers, for partners as well. So there's help for her, you continuing to do the work that you need to do. It's a process. Okay, last question. We are 3 months past disclosure. I'm working on my impact letter, and I'm finding it impossible to work on it, as it's so hard for me to come out of denial that I've been in for 13 years of marriage. Any tips?
There's a book that is really, really difficult but it's called Intimate Treason. Last name of the author is Black. I can't remember her first name.
Claudia
Black. It's a kick in the gut. So I don't recommend that always right off the bat. But it is a workbook. But it tells a lot of stories about partners who've been betrayed. And so that and the whole point of it is to help you tap into your power, and to help you tap into your ability to have boundaries. But it's intense. So, but that may help you, as you hear some other women's stories, be able to see how the impact has been for you. There's also the resources of Wee Tonglen, so being able to oftentimes when I'm working with my clients on these kind of letters, I'll have them read it to others before they read it to their partner, to get validation and to get insight. So if there is a group of women that you could read it to and say, hey, could I read my letter to you, and get some insights? Oftentimes talking about that and being validated helps feel more comfortable when you actually read it to your spouse.
I also wonder about, like, if you take it out of the context that I'm writing this impact letter, if you just journaled, if you just were writing and let it flow, I suspect that some things would come out of there that you'd go, oh yeah, that's part of it. And you've been through disclosure, so you have a qualified professional. Like, lean into your qualified professional. This, that would be really useful too. I did include among the books that are posted on our website was Vicki Tidwell Palmer. She's got some information on that. Oh, I forgot. I think there's one on there too with Dan Drake and Janice Cottle, about the disclosure process, and there could be helpful pieces from that as well. So again, lots of resources on our website, for you to lean into. Again, Troy will be on with the trade partners tomorrow, and he'll be on with the guys on Friday. So go to our website to find those dates or those times in your time zone. But join him live for those. Those are not recorded. Those are private, and he's working with the people that are in that. So highly encourage you to lean into that. So thank you, my dear friend. I will see you in a month. Okay.
All right. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.